Well, welcome to our classic car, and we begin this collection of classic British convertibles, roadsters and drophead coupes with a 1957 Austin Metropolitan. And that is followed by a Daimler SP250 showing off its 2.5 litre V8 engine down at the NEC Classic Car Show. And back to the vintage era, and we have BU 8558, which is a 1935 Lagonda M45. Next up, a Morris Minor of 1931, 4-seat, 2-door tourer. And that is followed by VHX 555, that's a 1949 Allard L1 4-seat tourer. An LNA 894G, a rear view of a Triumph TR5 with the Lucas fuel-injected 2.5 litre engine. DYW161, that's a 1937 SS100. And a real rarity now, this is a Vauxhall Cresta EIPC convertible of 1954. And here a rear 3/4 view of a Morris 8 Series 1 tourer. And an MGTF. This was spotted at a car meeting at Alton Park a little while ago. And yes, another classic convertible, this time a Land Rover, a Series 2. To slightly more recent times, an H716 TEP. This is a 1990 TVR-S. And to very much the vintage era is FR611. This is a 1921 Iris. Very rare, lesser known British manufacturer, and that's followed by a Triumph TR3A. And this unusual machine is a Daimler Conquest Roadster of 1954. It's a Silverstone now. An AKU 991, that's an Aston Martin Ulster of 1935. And facing the camera, a Triumph Vitesse 2 litre convertible. Continuing with these British convertibles and open top cars, we've got an MG C-Type Montleray Midget. That's followed by a Sunbeam Alpine of the 1960s on mini-light style wheels. And the rarity here, the Crayford converted Ford Corsair convertible. Now to Silverstone auctions at the NEC, and this is a Jaguar XK140 drophead coupe. And a collection of Triumph Stags at a local classic car show a few years ago, all of them with their roofs raised. To vintage years now, and a Clino of the 1920s, 4-door 4-seat tourer with a little Austin 7 alongside. Back to Silverstone, an LGT 155N, that's a Jensen Interceptor of 1975, left-hand drive convertible version. While YY 1662, that's a 1932 Lagonda 2 litre low chassis Continental. Austin Healey Sprite Mark 1, or Frog Eye, Bug Eye, whichever, parked next to a local lake. And this is a 1939 Austin A30 Tourer. I believe the Tourers were only produced before the Second World War. And after the war, it was just the saloons. And the good old MGB Roadster, the rubber bumper car of the mid to late 1970s. And here's quite a rare Austin Healey, NOJ 392. This is the Austin Healey 100 prototype. I think this was down at Race Retro, if memory serves. Then we've got a Sunbeam Talbot Alpine of the early 1950s, also at the NEC on a club stand. Back to Silverstone and a Triumph TR3A. VBK 299. Continuing with these classic British convertibles, we go to the pre-war Hillman Minx, the 1938 Hillman Minx foursome drophead coupe. A very rare car indeed. That is followed by ED 5843, which is a 1930 Morgan Super Aero. JDB 88E, that's a Triumph Spitfire 4 Mark II of 1967, powered by the 1147cc Herald engine. And here one of the Wolseley Hornet Crayford convertibles, as offered by prize by Heinz back in the 1960s. And VD30, another MG Montlery from 1931, 747cc. And here we have a Jaguar XK120 drophead coupe. And entering a classic car show a couple of years back, a 1965 Triumph Herald 1200 convertible. There's a vintage Jowett, early 1920s. And PWP 387, this is a 1960 3.4 litre Jaguar XK150 drophead coupe. And now the big Healey, the Austin Healey 3000. A side view of the Austin 7 Chummy, motoring for the masses back in the 1920s. That's followed by ABA 525, that is a Riley Sprite. And carrying on with these classic and vintage British cars, convertibles, all of them. We have CAA 275R, which is a Triumph Spitfire 1500, which shared its engine with the rubber bumper MG midgets. And this is a just post-war Rover P3 Tourer. JM 4370, this is a Riley Imp. This particular car was used in trials and competition before the war. And that's followed by a rubber bumper MG midget of the 1970s, being hotly pursued by an MGC Roadster. Next up, KPG 516, that's a Sunbeam Talbot 10 of 1946. A Triumph TR3, left-hand drive car, bright black, white wall tyres, just in from the USA, I suspect. Here we've got the Jaguar E-Type, the Series 3 V12 Roadster, AUF 459K. There's a real unusual car. This is a Rover P375 from 1948, bodied by Graber. Another Triumph TR3A, hardtop fitted. And to the Haynes Motor Museum now, and the vintage early 1920s air-cooled Rover 8 Tourer. On a particularly rainy day, we've got a Ford Zodiac Mark II 657 BKG, which dates to 1962. And that's followed by BYP1, a Lagonda of 1935. Is that a Lagonda Rapier, I think? Not the greatest photo, but this is a Frisky Sport. A Triumph TR4A with its Surrey top, with the lift-out centre panel in the roof. And a Land Rover, this time an early 70s Series 3 Land Rover. A Singer and a Singer 9 Roadster of the early to mid 1950s RGO 108. JGC 480, that's from 1947, and there's a Flat Rad Morgan. There's a Triumph TR4, enjoying our weather, also with a Surrey top by the look of it underneath that umbrella. YS 6252, that's a Daimler 15, bodied by outside coach builders Martin Walters, perhaps better known for their camper conversions, and that is followed by a vintage Austin 12. Look at the old Morris Minor convertible. Had to be one of those in here. And carrying on with classic roadsters, we have this wonderful bright yellow MGA, and in the background is an MGR V8. Both convertibles, of course. That's followed by 668 XUG, that's an MGTD of 1953, a 1250cc car. And a Series 1 Land Rover now. Roof very much in the raised position, A brace of sunbeam tigers enjoying the sun. Then we have 77RW, possibly the most famous Jaguar E-Type Series 1 of all. This was the 1961 Geneva Motor Show car and the oldest surviving E-Type Roadster. And that is followed by a Y Series 4-seat 2-door Tourer MG. Here we've got the mighty Marcos. Next up, a Riley RM convertible. This is a 2.5 litre Riley RM, judging by the pale blue badge on the radiator grille. And an Austin A30 prototype here. This is down at the Gaydon Motor Museum. This was a prototype that BMC pondered but never went into production with, and that's followed by a Triumph Spitfire Mark III circa 1967-1968. Here's a magnificent pre-war 1939 Triumph Dolomite Roadster. A very stylish machine. And an amphicar taking a dip. Next up we have a Jowett Jupiter enjoying the sunshine. Another one of the MG Y Series Tourers. Again, post-war car. Continuing with these classic convertibles, a side view now of a Triumph TR3. And next we have 138 XUS. That's a Austin 7 Opel of 1938. One of several variations of the open-topped Austin 7 theme. That's followed by a Jaguar XK120 Roadster. That was over at Alton Park. And also at Alton Park on a classic car race day was this Triumph TR6. That's then followed by a Morris 8 Series 2 Tourer. Series 2's had the painted radiator surround and the disc wheels. Back to Alton Park and we spotted this Aston Martin DB6 Volante driving by. Another rarity is a Hillman Super Minx in convertible form and on wire wheels. Also at Alton Park, XOV584, this was a race-prepared Morgan that we saw. And this we spotted back in 2006, a Vauxhall Nova convertible. We've not seen another one since. How many are left of those, I wonder? And next up we have AVW532. This was a Tickford-bodied BSA, a 3-position drophead coupe. And here's someone's homemade Austin A35 convertible, it would appear, possibly inspired by the A30 at Gaydon. Next up, a Triumph Spitfire Mark IV of the early 1970s. RX3612, this is a Bentley 6.5 litre, albeit with an 8 litre engine shoehorned under its bonnet. And a rainy day for this 1965 MGB Roadster. Here we've got an MGC Roadster, a 6-cylinder variant based on the MGB but very different under the skin. HBT 232, this is a 1949 Triumph 2000 Roadster. This was spotted at a classic car show in North Wales way back in 2006, as was this 1965 MG Midget. .208 DXO is an Alvis TD21 of 1960, enjoying a particularly rainy day. Also on a rainy day we've got an MG 1880 heading a Lagonda, both vintage cars. I think the Lagonda is probably a 2 litre car. And down to the Jaguar Daimler Heritage Trust we've got LDU 604, which is a Jaguar Mark V 3.5 litre drophead coupe. And next up a late 1930s Austin 7 EOP 733. There's a Morris Minor convertible. This is a Series 2 car, an early one with the cheese grater grille before they went to the horizontal slatted grille. And to slightly more recent times, a very wet TVR 350i. This is a 1934 Austin 10-4 3-position cabriolet. A restored example seen in North Wales about 5 or 6 years ago, and in Wales in 2006 we saw this Hillman Minx convertible. Again, a very, very rare survivor. Slightly more recently we took part in a classic car road run, and we were followed by this bullnose Morris Cowley of the late 1920s, an HSK 269, that's an Elvis TA14. And on display down at Gaydon at the British Motor Museum we saw this 1965 Mini Moke, very distinctive. DR8016, that's an Elvis Silver Eagle of 1931. And here, an ex-registration Triumph Tr7 Convertible, last of the TR line. Glistening in the sun, we've got a Jaguar E-Type Series 2, a 4.2 litre car. An MG5204, this is a 1937 MGVA Tourer. MGA Roadster alongside. Several to go out here. There's a Lotus Elan Sprint in the foreground, that's joined by a Triumph Stag, a Triumph Vitesse, a Midget, a Mark IV Spitfire, and another one. And upholding the vintage traditions is this Rolls-Royce 20 horsepower car. ELL 476, that's a 1937 Elvis Silver Crest. Stunning car indeed, and oldest of the lot in this particular collection is this 1901 Argyle. Not strictly a convertible car because I don't think there's a roof, but it's certainly open topped. That's followed by an 1172 Ford powered Dello trials car of the 1950s, no doubt slightly breathed upon. This rarity is War 182, this is a special bodied Jowett Jupiter from 1950. LJ2317, that's a circa 1930 or thereabouts Riley 9 Tourer. And GTP 421, this is a voluminous Daimler DB18 Sports Special Drophead Coupe. And continuing with these classic convertibles, we've got a circa 1967 Lotus Elan. There's a TR6 alongside. ABC 885, that's an Austin 7 Pearl Cabriolet of 1936, open top version of the Ruby. An XSU 512, that's a Triumph TR2. Still a few more convertibles to come. An NL0950, this is a Lagonda DB3 Drophead Coupe of 1953, first owner being Peter Ustinov, and that's followed by a military Austin Champ. AFH 516B, that's a rare soft-top version of the Reliant Sabre, this car from 1964. Another rarity, XJ6649, this is a 1933 Triumph Super 7. VVT 497, that's a 1955 Swallow Duretti, based on contemporary Triumph running gear. And a Ford Zephyr Mark II 308 DKA. Not long to go now. This is a Triumph Spitfire 4 Mark I of the early 1960s, roof raised. Looks like a Herald or a Vitesse alongside. Next up, a Lagonda 3 litre NUV 924, 3-position drophead coupe. And rounding off this collection of classic British convertibles, roadsters and open-top cars in general is RSY 316, which is 1959 Barclay T60 three-wheeler. So, that was the set of 130 photos featuring classic British convertibles, roadsters, drophead coupes and open-top cars in general. I hope that was of interest. Please check out some of the other classic car and vintage car videos now on the Old Classic Car channel. More videos along very soon. Thanks for watching and bye for now. Bye bye.